Hi, everybody, and welcome to this evening's first Leadership Live session of the year. Tonight, we are joined by Mina Boström Nakicenovic and Simon Powers. We are AWA and Bright to Work, a global training and consultancy, and we help our clients to create people-first, value-driven workplaces through product, leadership, and change. Please check out our websites, brighterwork.com and adventuresagile.com to see previous events and a whole range of different topics from burnout, leadership development and product, including white papers, books, and also details on our upcoming events. So about tonight's event, I had the privilege of meeting Mina for the first time back in 2016 when we hosted you for your talk on agile architecture for an AWA meetup. Since then, Mina has been awarded the third best software engineer in Sweden in 2016, recognized as one of the top 100 female thought leaders worldwide by Lean and Agile in 2019. And Mina has been CTO at Paradox Interactive and is now CTO at Flight Radar 24, which is a company that tracks airplanes in real time all around the world. Tonight, Mina and AWA CEO Simon Powers will be talking about a really important topic that's close to my heart and close to a challenge that many of our clients at Bright to Work are facing, and that's finding that delicate balance between managing the needs of your teams, the needs of your corporate objectives, all while remaining true to your authentic self without burning out. It will be in a conversational style format like we normally do for Leadership Lives, and will be visually recorded by the amazing Gemma Honor. If you want to share any experiences in the chat or ask questions, please do, and we'll do our best to ask Mina as well during the conversation. That's it from me. Over to you, Mina.
Thank you, Charlie. I wanted to say that it's also such a pleasure for me to be part of your Adventures with Agiles and Bright to Work journey. So, as you said, I have been working on a deeply technical side for many, many years, but then I realized that you cannot deliver a good tech product without good leadership skills. So that's why I became very interested in understanding and learning more about leadership. Of course, there are a lot of perspectives on the leadership topic, but today I'm going to focus on the following one. When you are a leader, you have two customers of your leadership. You have your teams, departments that you are leading, and that you would like to motivate people, lead them, help them to develop, to lead them in the right direction. But on the same time, you have your managers or founders or board of directors, if you are at the C level, and you need to deliver business value to them. So at the same time, like you are one person, you have one leadership skills, leadership style, but you need to satisfy both. So that's why I became so interested in understanding better which are the most important leadership traits and how we can, like as a leader, how you can work on yourself from a self-leadership perspective in order to develop skills which will both inspire your teams and people that you are leading, but also that you deliver business value. So that's why I usually say it's about business leadership. So it's a very short introduction about what we are going to talk about today.
Awesome. Thank you, Mina, for that introduction. It's such an important topic, this. We have been working in the space of organizational change, helping people make businesses for years and make good businesses and good cultures and things. And it nearly always comes back to this challenge of leadership. And when we get into the leadership challenge, as it were, how do leaders work? There's this overriding sort of perspective of looking outwards about what leaders, how leaders manage or what they do externally. But what it seems that much of the learning that you have done is really looking inwards about what happens inside. And really that seems to be the unlocking mechanism to enable good leadership and then good organizations and good products. It's this inward looking. Is that something, does that resonate with you?
Exactly. After my working on that or being interested in leadership and learning more, we need to start from ourselves. So many smarter people than me published a lot of books and articles and having interesting researches done that everything starts with self-leadership. So if you are a good leader for yourself, there is a big probability that you are going to be a good leader at work and also at home with your family, with your, in all domains of your life. So one thing that I think is going to be the main message, and I'm going to say directly now, and then we are going to reveal how you can do that. It's the most important thing is that you stay true to yourself. And I know it sounds very philosophical. What does it mean? But during this nice conversation, hopefully we are going to explain first, what does it mean? What is your true self? And then how you can achieve staying true to yourself. But that we don't jump directly in philosophical thoughts, I will start first with something that I think it's easy to understand and illustrates well what does it mean, like the outcomes when you are staying true to yourself. So I'm going to refer to beautiful Eve poem written by Rudyard Kipling, because I read that poem when I was a child, and of course I understood that in one way, but after all this knowledge about leadership, I think it's fantastic. Many verses in this poem explains a lot of important self-leadership traits. So if we start from the start, as Kipling said, if you can keep your head when all about you are losing theirs and blaming it on you. If you can trust yourself when all men doubt you, but make allowance for their doubting too. After working with business leadership, when you read this first verse, you recognize a typical scene from a boardroom when you're presenting, like the higher management team is presenting something to the chairman of the board or board members. And then you are in that, you need to stay true to yourself and to explain your beliefs and other things. So I can say that first verse is just the wanted outcome. But now we are going to go deeply and to explain how you can find what is your true self and how you can develop mechanisms and tactics that you are staying true to yourself even in challenging situations, both at work but also in private life.
Yeah, beautiful. What a beautiful poem to start with. Yeah, thank you for that, and great courage there to bring that out. That's awesome. And I'm wondering, in your experience, when we've all been around when people are losing their heads, as it were, losing that space, and then having that sort of ability to stay anchored in, as you say, your true self. I don't know whether you'll get to this. Maybe I'm jumping ahead, but I'm just wondering from your experience, what happens inside you? What's going on for you when you get in that space? How do you go, oh, this is a moment, all this chaos is going on around me, it's so easy to get caught in it. Oh, we need this, Mina. Oh, there's that. Oh, there's our clients this, they've got this financial challenge, and oh, someone is ill, and we
Yes, it's a very good question, and my answer on that is you cannot quickly solve that situation. First, you need to work on yourself to understand yourself better, to understand how you react in different situations. to understand which things are important for you, which things are not important. And first, after like all that hard work on yourself, you will be able to manage this situation much quicker. But let's start from the beginning and see how you build those steps. Like, it's just my opinion. I'm not saying that is like built in the stone, but from my experience, where you should start and how you should start. So when you say staying true to yourself, many people are like, what is really true yourself? Is it just a genetic material that you got and you cannot work with that? Or there are some things that you can work on yourself and develop? So all my knowledge from psychology, leadership, learned me that there are a lot of things that you can develop and work with yourself. First, we all know, like people who are working with business, when you start to join the company or start your own company, all people are saying the most important is first to define vision and mission, and then set a strategy how you reach that vision. I would say, even from the personal perspective, each of us should start to define what is my leadership vision and mission? What are my values and strengths? So start first with identifying your core values without jumping on the company's core values and your strengths and weaknesses. And what is so interesting, when I read a lot of articles written by smart professors from Harvard Business School, they're saying very interesting things about strengths and weaknesses. Like the traditional way how we were taught was like, oh, you should identify strengths and weaknesses, and then you should work on your weaknesses. But they are saying completely the opposite. When you know your strengths, it's much better that you invest your time and energy in improving your strengths. So from being very good at something to become a brilliant at something, instead of spending the same time and energy on improving your weaknesses and just getting mediocre in something. I think also by identifying your core values and your strengths and weaknesses, it will help you with the self-awareness and self-esteem. Because I think if you are aware about like where your strengths are, where your interests are, where your values are, it will be easier for you to understand yourself and then to know in which areas you can be good at. So I would recommend to start with the values and strengths. But then to continue, then it's time to define a strategy for your life. And I know it sounds very scary, like how can I define a strategy for my life? But I would recommend the following thing that I applied on myself. It's not so scary. You can take a look back at your life and try to see how you did prioritization during your life. And you will capture those red threads that in many situations you prioritized one type of things or some things compared to the other ones, right? And then you can say, why I did this type of prioritization. It will help you to understand your vision, what you tried to achieve with that. So if you can start with just analyzing your life and decisions that you made before, it will help you to understand yourself better, what you are aiming for, what is your vision and even mission in life. So I can illustrate with a very short example. For example, from my personal life, I can say that I always loved reading books. So I was always the girl with the book. And when I started my studies, I was very ambitious also, and I wanted to get excellent grades. And once next to me during the one lesson, it was a colleague, and he saw one book, a novel in my bag, and he said, "Oh, Mina, do you have a time to read the novels?" Because he said, like, our studies are so requiring, it's better to focus on studies. And then, although I was ambitious, I felt like I will never give up reading books because it's very important for me. So I didn't do that. I continue reading books. And do you know what? I managed to get even better grades than him, because I think those things shows that there are some things that are really important for you. And also when I analyze it, also in some other situations, now we don't have the time to cover all of them, I realized that one of my life visions and missions is to learn more and to share my knowledge with all people around me, to build a better world with the sharing knowledge. So it can be a short example about how you can start working on your strategy for your life. Also, another thing that is important when you have identified those values and strategy and prioritization, it will help you to avoid something that Clayton Christensen called marginal cost mistakes. Because both at work and in your life, sometimes you're doing something that diverges from your strategy, and then you feel, oh, I spend the time and energy on something that is not important. But if you understand much better what are your strategy important things, it will help you to prioritize things better. And it's also very important, probably all of us are familiar with those situations at work, when you focus on the wrong things, you diverge from your original strategy, and then it resulted in long-term costs and many other bad things.
Yeah, I can definitely relate to that.
Yes.
There's definitely been situations where I get sidetracked, and this can happen, I guess, in the micro moment, like, for example, finding yourself on social media or being distracted, and also in much larger things, in projects or avenues or strategy where it isn't really aligned, but it seems like a good idea or something, or there's a distraction or some way. And I'm wondering, so you've got that in a personal space to do that when you're clear, and then and I guess that then there's that sort of aligning with others in terms of their strategies, and how does that work, and how do you get pulled from one place to another based upon relationships and things like that as well, and it gets much more complex.
Yes, it's a very philosophical question
Yeah.
that you are asking me. Like my vision of that personal life, and also like choosing the right partner in life and so on, I think it's so important, also coming back to that vision and strategy, that you find people who are having similar core values and similar vision in life. And then you can develop each other together towards the similar visions in life. And I think it's also a very interesting question, even from the leadership and business perspective, both from the individual perspective and also company perspective. When you're recruiting people, it's so important that both company has defined core values, but also that people are aware of what is important for them, what are their core values. Because in order that it results in a long-term collaboration, those core values maybe should not be exactly the same, not be completely aligned, but they must coexist together. If there is a big difference, if they are completely opposite, that person will not stay longer at the company and also will not be happy. So I think from that perspective, it's so important to think about both personal core values and beliefs and also company core values, and think all the time, are they aligned? Can they coexist together? Because as we all know, if we feel like that we believe in the company's core values, you are going to be more motivated, you are going to perform better work and everything else. So it's beneficial from both sides of the company, like both company and individual perspective with those core values.
I love that, what you said about them. You don't have to be exactly the same, but they need to coexist. That gives an area of flexibility for growth.
Exactly.
Because both parties influence each other, whether you're an individual, a company, in a partnership, or whether you're on the senior leadership team. We all have influence, and we share our values and we live our values. And so there's that coexistence. I love that phrase that you use. That's amazing.
Yes, exactly. And also coming back to that, working with a vision and mission and strategy, I'm going to refer again to the Eve poem and describe, and then I will explain why I believe it's so important. So Kipling said, if you can dream, but not make dreams your master, if you can think and not make thoughts your aim. Why I think it's so important. In order to be able to set a vision, both at work and in private life, you need to be a dreamer, right? You need to understand that big picture and be a visionary, and many entrepreneurs are. But it is equally important when you define the vision and what you want to achieve, to have ability to set a good strategy how you can achieve the vision. So it means you have to think also. So it's not enough only to be visionary and to dream. And that's why I think it's really important to think about both those components. Now I'm going to refer, because I found excellent explanation about also working with goals and also breaking down the strategy on achievable goals. In fact, I found that wonderful explanation in a book written by Angela Duckworth, Grit. And many people identify grit with that inner voice that are saying you need to persevere and so on. But she had a much more holistic explanation why people have a grit and what is that drive that forces you to persevere. It's not only that you are disciplined and organized. We are coming back to that vision and strategy. So if you're just a dreamer and have a vision, if you don't have a strategy how you go there, you're not going to achieve anything. On the other side, we have a kind of people that are very good at setting every next step. Now I achieved this, but I will go there. But if they don't have a high level vision, what will happen if they don't achieve the next goal, if they have a setback or some failure? They don't know what to do. But if you have that high level vision, it will inspire you and force you to find another way how you achieve that vision. So for me, grit also lies in that ability to set a vision, to set a strategy, and break down a strategy on achievable goals, how you reach the vision. But it's really important to understand that that high level vision, I think it's the reason why you get that drive in yourself that you want to persevere, because you still want to reach the vision. And it's also like even Rudyard Kipling explained the grit in his poem, because he said the following: if you can force your heart and nerve and sinew to serve your turn long after they're gone, and so hold on when there is nothing in you except the will which says to them, hold on. And in fact, that will, it's that grit, that drive that help you to persevere and continue to fulfill your vision.
Beautiful. And so there's the vision has power. It feels like this power is being used as a motivational element to keep going. And so I'm wondering about the creation of this vision and how to infuse that with this power, which when every one of us has that low day or that down day, or the day, like you say, when we have an obstacle and we get stuck and we need to figure out what to do next. And we look to that vision for that source of inspiration, that source of power. And so it feels like creating that vision and imbuing that with some kind of power and energy is important.
Yes, exactly. And I would repeat again, it's that important, but also thinking. You need to spend a lot of time on strategic thinking, because it really helps me a lot, instead of just doing things, to think like how I can reach my vision, how this strategy maybe didn't work, maybe I can try another one, and so on. And like personally, what helps me, but of course people are different, in my personal case, that helped me a lot. It's that I'm kind of generalist type. I like to learn a lot, to have that, knowing a lot of things about different domains helped me to be more creative, to find inspiration somewhere else, and ability to see the big picture. And also coming back to that marginal cost mistake, that I didn't want to diverge from my strategy about reading books. Now I realized that I spend a lot of time on reading other books, not only the books necessary for my studies, helped me in my professional life nowadays, because I find a lot of inspiration and creativity in all those different things that I read at that time.
Yeah, brilliant. So,
and
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I was just going to say, this idea of taking things from different spaces and recombining, that's very much in a very complex way of thinking about things in terms of complexity theory and things. I imagine that there's having that vision also builds, can be adapted as you learn more things. You can sort of adapt your vision and then you learn more. It's just more like a cyclical thing.
Exactly. And that it's beauty of that. You are getting more and more knowledge, and it's like a power that are driving you, more inspiration and more creativity. And also in the innovation world, it's called the intersectional innovation, when you're trying to combine different domains or apply principle from one domain into another domain to innovate something. And also, when we are talking about that, strongly held core values, when you identified them, we are coming to another important leadership trait that is usually typical for people who are very aware about their personal vision, strongly held core values. It's the resilience. And I know that many people, and nowadays, everyone is talking about resilient leaders. But when you are a resilient leader, you're resilient if you can watch the things that you gave life to broken and stoop and build them up with worn out tools, as Kipling said. And it's really interesting with the resilience. I read one very interesting article about resilient leaders. And those smart professors from Harvard Business School, they analyzed a lot of resilient leaders, and they found out that there are three things in common with all resilient leaders. The first thing is importance of facing down the reality. And it's very interesting. You should be like a kind of a positive person, but also have ability to understand what is happening, especially if bad things are happening. And in fact, it's interesting phenomena, because I was at a couple of companies and working with the leaders, C-level leaders, but they never experienced any crisis in their previous jobs. So they were too optimistic. And when we got the first signals that something is that the trend will change at the company, they didn't want to see those signals that something worse or bad is going to happen. So I think it's really important, although you should be positive to solve a complex or bad situation, or those type of bad things. But on the other side, you need to face down the reality to understand it's really happening, Then the second thing is to be creative and to have ability to improvise. Because when everything is going good, you're just sticking to your strategy, getting the revenue streams as you planned, and so on. But when the crisis happens, you need to be creative and have ability to improvise in order to find a good solution. And the third thing that they recognize that all resilient leaders have in common, they called that as a strong meaning of a life that I interpret as a strongly held core values, that they really understand where are their place in the world, how they're contributing to the world. And that's why it gave them energy to cope with a very tough and crisis situation. So now we are coming back to another importance, why it is important to define your own beliefs and core values. It will help you to be more resilient, because it will help you to have more motivation to find solution even during the crisis situation, both at the job, but also in the private life.
Brilliant. Another a brilliant phrase from Kipling there, with the worn out tools and the being, but you keep going, that grit that you mentioned. I certainly recognize that when you know, all businesses have their ups and downs, all life has their ups and downs, and those three ingredients there have that completion to keep going, which is something that we need. You also mentioned self-esteem earlier, and
Exactly.
it feels like those three things are fantastic and they work together. And then there's this self-esteem part as well, because, you know, we all have good days and bad days. How do you keep your self-esteem going? And, you know, as we all have to in some way.
Yes, it's a really very good question. I was thinking a lot about that self-esteem, even talked to some friends who are psychologists to help me to understand better how you can build even better self-esteem. So here is my thoughts about that, how I see on that. First, I think you start with the self-awareness. It's so important to understand how you function, where your strengths, weaknesses, because I think when you know yourself better, then you feel more confident. Then you are more self-secure in many situations, you know, because you know, in this thing, I can be good, this thing, maybe I will avoid that, and so on. So you are building your self-confidence by having better self-awareness. Then I think it's also like by having your life strategy. If you have defined what is your vision and mission in life, then you will be more aware how you contribute to the world. And it's also part of self-esteem, because you are more sure what you can bring to this world. And the third thing, I would also connect to that also with the grit. I think also with having that vision and ability to cope with your setbacks, that you don't just get depressed, but that you continue, it gives you a bigger, how to say, space within that self-esteem. So, and even if you fail one thing, because you know there are all other things that I want to achieve, it will build your self-esteem and help you. I don't know if I described in a good way, but I think also that working with the grit, and I strongly believe you can develop that in yourself. It's not only you're born with that or not, but it will build also your self-esteem.
And it seems like, I mean, at the beginning, Charlie read out some of the amazing things that you have done over the since we last saw you, which was quite a few years ago now. And so it feels like that you have got that grit, that determination to keep moving forwards. And that's, you know, that's incredible. And you talk about that so articulately. And I'm wondering, is there something on a day-to-day that you do to keep your spirits up, or is it that your vision and purpose keeps you going? How does that work for you personally?
Yes, for me personally, it's that vision and mission. Usually I got idea I want to, and usually it's not related to my personal goals, but I want to achieve something much more from I want to learn more about that, and it will be great if my company does that, or my family. And then I think I have ability to set a good strategy with realistic goals to achieve the vision. But my main driver are visions and ideas that I want to deliver to the world. Yeah. And usually it's a consequence of maybe my well-set strategy that I got even acknowledgement from the environment. Mm-hmm. And it's also important. I need to say that an environment where you are, because you start with something, you maybe have your vision and strategy, but if you don't get that positive feedback from your environment, it discourages all people. And that's why it's so important to end up or to choose environment. Now I'm much more, I have a strong internal locus of control. I don't think so that you just end up in environment, but you have ability to choose environment where you want to grow and develop, so that you choose the right environment that is also aligned or coexist with your core values and where you can grow. So I think in my personal case, it's all like main driver is vision, but all the time I was thinking a lot strategically, what is the right environment for me, how I can create a good strategy. So it's a combination of vision, but also a lot of thinking.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Thank you. And you mentioned this step-by-step approach as well. And I imagine the feedback from the environment, if you make those steps smaller, working towards your vision, then you can get more feedback, which then gives you more power and more motivation.
Exactly. It's like iterative software development.
Yeah, exactly.
With a short,
yeah.
Yes, sprints, exactly. But it's so important because then you build up on that. And probably, as I said, I'm a strong believer that many things you can develop yourself. But also, since, for example, I trained swimming as a child, I think usually sports help you to set those like mid-level goals and achieve. So it helps you with developing that, how you can achieve your goals in an efficient way.
Yeah.
And also what I wanted to add, when we talked about self-esteem, I think it's also important not only for yourself, but for the whole environment, your teams, people that you are leading. Also, there are a lot of studies that people appreciate the most humble leaders, and usually humble leaders have a strong self-esteem. And it's also logical. If you are, I would say, not happy, but satisfied with yourself and your life, if you know what you are trying to achieve and what is your place in the world, then usually you are humble and nice to other people, because you already identified yourself. So having a self-esteem does not only help an individual, it helps the whole environment around you.
Yeah, I can see that. It's a positive feedback loop of both the strategy, the direction, but also of this self-esteem. You mentioned a phrase, locus of control.
Yes.
And I wondered if you might go a bit more into what that means for you.
Yes. So as I learned that locus of control, that position, who make decision in your life, one group of people has that internal locus of control and believe that they can control most of things in the life. And other people have that external locus of control and think, oh, it happened to me, I cannot influence everything, and of course, and so on. As I said, probably maybe we are born with some of those things, but I really believe that with the self-awareness, you can work on yourself and move that locus of control, that you do that internally, that you believe that you can control most of things in your life. And I think it's also helps you, for example, being a resilient leader, because then you believe I can find solution even in this tough situation, because you believe that destiny is in your hands, not only other people hands. But of course, I need to emphasize, people are not stupid. And of course, I think it's also important, you cannot control everything around you, but it's also important ability to distinguish what you can control and what you cannot control, and then spend the time and energy on control, changing things that you can control.
Yeah, that's very wise. We've got time for one more question, and then we can maybe do a wrap up, and then we've got a few other things we wanted to do, like questions and things. It's very clear what you've said. I feel it's very and the one additional element I was thinking is this concept of emotional intelligence and resonance with others. So we've got our strategy, we've got our values, we're moving incrementally towards that good feedback. What's your feeling on that connection with others, that emotional intelligence as part of the awareness?
Yes, it's extremely important. Why? Because first, as I said, you start with the self-awareness to understand yourself. Then the next step is self-management. you understand how you function, how you react in different situations, then you want to train yourself how you can like react in different situations, that you don't overreact, underreact, that you are nice to your environment. But then it's not enough. Then you need to understand, and that's why that resonance, how the environment feels, because it's so important, especially if you are a leader on a high level, like C-level leader, like your reactions and behavior should be aligned with other people and also atmosphere. Otherwise, it's ridiculous. People will not trust you if like the company, everything's go very bad, you're trying to be too positive, or vice versa, is going well with the company, you're always like upset and angry and so on. So that emotional intelligence, so it's not enough only to work on yourself, but also to develop, to listen to the environment, to try to feel how people think, how they feel, and then like deliver your message and be a leader that is resonate like with your surrounding. It's really extremely important.
Yeah. I'd love to go deeper into all of these things. There's so much that you've given here today. I know that we're coming to sort of this time where perhaps like the sort of summary maybe of all the things I think we talked about. Was that the next step, Charlie? Did we want to have a sort of summary of where we're going, what we've said?
Yes, I think Gemma's going to play back the visual recording that,
Okay,
that she's been drawing.
Okay, but can I just say two sentences to wrap up my message that I wanted to deliver today?
Yeah.
And also, like, staying true to yourself, for me, it means also that you keep your personal authenticity. And what does it mean from Kipling's perspective? It means that if you can talk with crowds and keep your virtue, or walk with kings, nor lose the common touch. It means that you are staying true to yourself, to your core values, to your beliefs, to your vision and mission. But it does not mean that you are just listening to yourself, that you are listening also to your environment, and that you are leading other people aligned to how they feel, how they like perceive you. So it's a very complex question and explanation. What does it mean to stay true to yourself? It does not mean just staying true to your genetic material. It's much more around that you can work on yourself and become a better leader.
Fantastic. Brilliant. And I wonder whether there's, I know that we're sort of reaching time. I've got one more thing about around staying that true to yourself, having that authenticity to keep moving forwards with the strategy, and also spending the time to listen and tune in. That I'm thinking of the pace. I'm wondering how you manage your pace of leadership, because moving forwards is obviously a pace, but also emotional intelligence is a pause and a listen, and there's a tension there, a healthy tension, hopefully. What's your take on that?
Yes, I don't know exactly about the pace, but what I believe in, because I was thinking also a lot about that personal authenticity, external influence, what you like, how to combine both. And it's so important to find a healthy balance between external influence, external inspiration. So for me, it's learning from other people, to be externally open, to listen not only how they feel, but to learn new things from them. But then try to apply what does it mean from my personal authenticity context, so that I'm not just trying to be a leader. I have my role models among other leaders, but I'm not trying just to copy them. I try to be inspired by them, but then I want to align that with my personal authenticity. What does it mean from my to be, authentic, inspired by authentic, but it's not an easy thing, definitely.
No, thank you so much for that, for all of those amazing things. Is there anything else that you wanted to say, Mina, before we hand over to Gemma?
No, it was a much more message that I am strong believer that if we work a lot ourselves, we can become better persons in life, better leaders, both for us and for the environment where we are.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Mina. I'll just share my screen so that you can take a look at the image that I've created. It's definitely not finished yet, so I've got some work to do on this. But yeah, I love the idea that you kind of opened with, that actually you kind of got two customers as a leader, the team and the managers. But actually, the biggest obligation to yourself and to really knowing yourself before you can start fulfilling the needs of everybody else. So what a brilliant opening. You then went into one of my favorite poems, which is If. So I've kind of copying that out and just kind of noticing how the different messages that you've got around leadership link into those. So around keeping your head, that was really around that growing your self-knowledge. So what are your strengths? And I love the idea of actually, instead of taking, if you were going to take, like, see your weaknesses as well, instead of trying to build on your weaknesses to become something mediocre, actually build on your strengths. Like that's where your zone of genius is. So I love that message. What choices do I make? And that helps inform what my values are, because the kind of decisions that you make day to day are the ones that actually tell you a lot about yourself. Here we go. We've also got a dream space. If you can dream and not make dreams your master, think and not make thoughts your aim. How beautiful. So I love the idea about creating that vision, surrounding yourself with people with those complementary values, bringing in various domains of knowledge, and then also making sure that you're kind of looking at that through an action lens. So yeah, fantastic. And then that idea around grit. And so I didn't manage to kind of copy out all of the quote here because I was like scribbling so fast. But you really kind of brought in some really amazing core ideas around what it means to have grit, and what is really important around that. So knowing your core values and being able to carry those, that gives you like a really firm foundation to rely on. Self-esteem, so like actually knowing what you have to give to the world, also so important. And then that brilliant idea that that you brought in as well around just like making sure that you've got a good locus and control, like actually feeling like you can make a positive change, and then knowing those areas and focusing in, like laser focus in on those areas where you actually can have an effect. So that was all I managed to capture from the talk. I know that there was loads and loads more in there, but yeah,
but it's
absolutely
fantastic. It's fantastic.
Yeah.
Thank you a lot, Gemma. It's fantastic. I
And
really like it.
Brilliant. You're so welcome.
Does anyone have any questions? Feel free to come off mute and ask, and we'll sort of manage if there's lots and lots. And if you don't feel like you want to come off mute, feel free to use the chat and we can read them out for you. Geeta.
And firstly, thank you for organizing this. And it was so beautiful to see your messages connected with the poem. My question is around your experience, where, you know, the piece you said, where you're being inspired by the others, but then you're connecting it to your own values. I guess there is never a clean answer of yes or no kind of box. It's never binary, right? There are bits that might align and there are bits that might not. And in your experience, what are the kind of key, your own inner parameters where you decide, I guess the last sentence that Gemma shared, it is all about that, right? Focus on where I can make a change and understand where I can have an effect, know that I can make a change and understand where I can have an effect. But I was just curious about your own experience when you have felt that inner dilemma or inner kind of a conflict between different pieces of it.
Thank you. Very good question. So it's a very complex area. It's not mathematics that it's easy or binary like IT. As I'm saying, like I learned some things through my experience. It's not that I already had like clear vision. I should do like this or like that. But I can say every time when maybe I got inspired by like some leaders, so maybe I thought it's good if I behave in this way, it's good for the company, it's good for the environment. But when I started applying them, but it showed up, it wasn't aligned with my personality and the core values. It didn't end up, I didn't feel good. So I think, yes, you can be inspired or like you can try some things. You can try doing it. The best way to learn things is with try doing that. But as soon as you feel like it's not me, it's not like aligned with my personal authenticity, then you can think, okay, but maybe those good things that I want to like use, how I can change a little bit and adjust to my personality. But it's not easy. And I can tell you, I ended up a couple of times that I thought like, oh, I should be this type of leader because this type of leader is good, like for the company. But when I started doing that or stopped doing certain things because some of the previous companies didn't appreciate those things, then I ended up in that misalignment with myself and it wasn't good.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Beverly, you have a question.
Yes, thank you, Mina, for the lovely session. You speak a lot about core values. Values are something I spend a lot of time on and have worked with people on. But I'm curious, what mechanism did you use to determine your core values? And then how do you know that they are indeed your core values and that they are truly authentic and not something aspirational?
Very good question. I don't have a very good answer on that. When I'm talking like about core values, I think much more for me, it's my own beliefs, like ethical, moral, what I appreciate, what is like for me important. So I don't know, maybe it's not exactly the core values, but much more like my beliefs, my system, how I classify this thing is good, this thing is not bad, but not equally good or important. So for me, it's much more that I like when I say core values. But I apologize in advance because it's a very like broad term, so it can be used in different contexts and can have a different meanings. But for me, it's like my own beliefs, what I think it's worth doing, what I appreciate with myself and other people. Yes. Thank you.
Do we have any other questions from anyone on leadership, being authentic, how to things like self-esteem, having a vision, actions, those kind of things? And anyone else would like to ask Mina on these topics that have come up?
I've got a question, Mina. So I was wondering how does it show up for you or in you when you sort of discover yourself out of authenticity? So I think you kind of gave an example of like whether you're kind of operating to your core values or whether those core values like meet in the company. What are things that people can kind of look out for that may tell them that they're not on their authentic path?
Thank you. Very good question. So like when I'm thinking about authenticity, also I read like usually I base my opinions and thoughts on like first I read a lot about that and then I create my opinion. Then we didn't have a time to cover, but there is something that is called the fundamental state of leadership. And it's usually when we are leading others, we are in something that is called the normal state of leadership, like we are applying the same leadership style as we have already learned that are proven and so on. But it said that sometimes we enter that the fundamental state of leadership when we are leading really with our personal authenticity. And by definition, it means 4 important things. First, that we stop being comfort-centered and that we are much more result-centered, so that we are following what we want to achieve, not try to align like it's more convenient to behave in this way or that way. Then the second thing is to be internally directed, that you don't lead just because other leaders are leading in that way and you are following, but you are listening to your ideas and beliefs. Then the third thing is also to be other focused, and what this means, and it's very tricky, that sometimes, especially in that when you have 2 customers of leadership, you're leading teams, but at the same time, you need to think what is the best from the company perspective. And sometimes those 2 things are not the same. Sometimes, for example, reorganizing teams are the most important thing from the company perspective, although you know that these teams are not going to be happy. So for me, it's also like how you can, yes, to be aware about that and to try to align with your leadership style, even if you need to do those type of changes. So I don't know if I answer your question, but yes, I don't have a good exact definition you should do like that. But I think listening yourself, and also that we covered during the talk, listening the environment, their feedback. But I can tell you from my personal experience, when I stopped doing things or didn't do things that I really believed in, I didn't feel well. So you directly understand the then dissonance, yes, that it's not according, that it's against yourself. I hope it answered your question.
Yeah, that's brilliant. And I was wondering whether it sort of showed up for you in the same way of like actually feeling it in your body, right? It's like a physical feeling of being ill or tired or achy, like, and if you're running out of that track of authenticity, I think that's where
yes, I lose my motivation. I lose like it happened to me before when I believed different companies have a different visions, especially like my big passion is conference speaking. And it wasn't popular in all companies where I worked. And when I thought, oh, maybe I should align myself, maybe I should stop doing that. And I told you, like, one of my personal vision and mission in life is to share knowledge with other people. When I stopped doing that, I didn't feel well. And then I realized I should change the company or try and find a way. So it's a simple example, but it was like, although I was happy with all other elements at that company, I decided to leave because it was so important for me to be able to grow and satisfy my personal vision and mission in life.
Yeah, and I'm really glad you are, because this has been amazing. You've shared so much brilliant knowledge with us. So I'm just, I'm pleased that you're on your mission.
Well, there's a couple of questions in the chat, and I'm going to actually do them slightly out of order because it plays with the flow of what we're talking about. And one of them is as part of your leadership role or in general, do you mentor others? Because there's quite a few people on here who believe that you would be a very good mentor based on the feedback here.
Yes, I'm leading other leaders. So I'm both at my job as a part of my job. And I always used to say leader, not manager, because I think managing things is just a small subset of being leader. So leader is much broader. It's not only inspiring people, but understanding where their strengths are, their potential for development, and to help them to develop in that direction. So I'm doing that, but also as you who know me, I'm a big networker. I like to be part of different communities because both I get a big value, but also I'm contributing to those communities, and also in touch with different people discussing all those leadership, self-leadership, tech questions. So I enjoy that. And I think it's always you get a lot of value yourself also by mentoring or leading others.
Thank you. We've got two more questions, but they're roughly on the same thing, actually, from Tom. This is about intuition and gut feel, and what role this might play. Specifically, he mentions finding the right client or roles, and relationships and things like this. How does that play with you? Do you have a strong sense of intuition, or what does that play out for you, this sort of gut feel?
Yes, a very good question. So I think regarding intuition, as you see, I'm a very scientific person. I like to find models for behavioral and all other things. I believe that one day even intuition is going to be explained by neuroscience and psychological models and so on. So I would say that intuition and that gut feeling, it's much more like that maybe you haven't explicitly identified your core beliefs, but in fact you feel, oh, my gut feeling, it's your core beliefs that you are saying, but maybe you didn't explicitly identify them, so you cannot explain why you don't feel that it's the right way to do. But I believe with a lot of thinking, you will understand better your gut feeling, why that environment or situation is not too good for you, or you should not act in this way, and so on. So it's how I see on that, but it doesn't mean that it's the final truth.
Brilliant. Thank you. Thank you so much for your time. I think that we are at the end of time. I think this is the right time. So thank you so much for your generosity in sharing everything today, your brilliant articulation of those of what it takes to be an authentic leader. So thank you so much. Is there anything that you would like to end with or say before we go?
No, apart from that, I really enjoyed this conversation, and that I really like your nice community. That's why I'm coming back. I got a lot because I'm saying, like, you develop yourself with working with other, exchanging thoughts, opinions, learnings. It's the way how we all develop, and it's really great. And I'm thankful for this opportunity, yes, to be here today.
Thank you so much. It's lovely to see you again. And thank you for all of your sharing and wisdom. Very much appreciated. Thank you. And thank you for everybody else as well, both for everyone who's organized this as well. Thank you, Gemma, for doing that amazing drawing and articulating in such amazing clarity all of the things that have been said. And of course, thank everybody here for being here and taking the time out of our busy lives to learn something new and connect with others. Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.